Welcome back to Hey Kentucky, here with Democratic candidate for governor Adam Edelen, who's my special co-host tonight. Adam, let's talk a little bit about the issues. Initially, what was the reason you decided to get in the race?
Well, Matt, I decided to get in the race because we have to modernize Kentucky. The truth is that we are living through a time of unprecedented economic transformation that is going to affect all of our lives, from automation and artificial intelligence to renewable energy, and we're not ready. And I have the skill set, I think, to get Kentucky prepared, being a leader in renewable energy, certainly the work I've done in the private sector. But the economy that we're shifting into, Matt, is going to reward the prepared and punish the unprepared. And the shame of it is that our leaders today are chasing an economy that doesn't exist anymore. And I'm going to change that as governor, and we're going to give people a fighting chance in this changing economy.
Matt Bevin likes to talk a lot about the successes he's had as governor economically, that he says, even if you don't like my attitude, at least I'm bringing jobs. And unemployment is down in the state of Kentucky. Do you think he has been successful as an economic leader?
I don't. He's chasing the economy of the 1980s. Essentially, Matt Bevin's economic message is this. We've shortchanged education. We have underskilled our workforce, so you don't have to pay them very much. And we've eliminated environmental and workplace safeguards. So this is really a place where you can come in and build a low-skill, low-wage economy for a corporation and do well. That's attractive to industrialists from like a generation ago. But the people who hold the key to economic prosperity in the future are turned off by those sorts of things. They want to know that you value the environment. They want to know that you value workers. They want to know that there is an education level that is being invested in that prepare workers not just for the jobs that are happening today, but the ones that are going to happen 12, 18, 24, 36 months down the road. So, and we're just not embracing that new economy, and we're not going to be able to build a modern Kentucky with the same old leaders, Matt.
The pension crisis, of course, has been a big issue still going on with the legislature now. Do you believe there need to be changes to the pension system? And if so, what would you make?
So the reforms that occurred, that began to occur in 2008 and then were forcefully implemented in 2013, I think made a lot of sense. We have two sets of challenges as relates to pensions in Kentucky. The first is that we missed 16 of 21 years of payments. And if your viewers think about what it would mean if they didn't pay over 2 years, they didn't pay 16 or 18 mortgage payments, what would happen? That's essentially what happened in Kentucky. So making sure our politicians have the financial discipline to make these payments every year is really important. But we have to acknowledge this thing was really poorly run, and there may be some ethical questions about how the pension systems have been run. And I'm a huge supporter of this lawsuit that has been brought forth on behalf of pensioners, because it's pretty clear to me that Wall Street took Main Street for a ride here in Kentucky. And if there's an opportunity to recover some of that money that was paid to hedge fund managers that was exorbitant, then let's collect it. But let's also, in that process, learn the lesson, Matt, of what went wrong, because it's plain that we either had people who were asleep at the wheel or we had people who were incentivized not to do the right thing.
Matt Bevin says he deserves credit for being the first person to fully fund it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, he absolutely deserves some credit for funding this. But the problem I see over the long term is that I think the legislature lacks the long-term discipline necessary to fund this, which is why I believe we need a direct line revenue source that feeds into this. Our friend Senator Morgan McGarvey has been a champion of this, and it's a damn good idea, and that is that we ought to do at least expanded gaming and make sure that whatever revenues are generated go directly into this system, because if we don't convince the rating agencies that we have the discipline to get the investments into this, we're going to be in a position where we aren't able to borrow money to invest in things like infrastructure or education.
Let me give you some quick hitter questions
Sure.
on issues. You are for expanded gaming?
I am.
Are you for medical marijuana?
I am.
Would you make any gun control legislation in the state?
Well, I think we ought to reevaluate where we are, and as the field stands right now, I'm the only legitimate sportsman in the bunch, and what I'll tell you is that when I go duck hunting, I have 3 shells in my shotgun. When I go dove hunting, I have 2. It makes sense to me that we all reevaluate our approach. But ultimately, gun control is essentially a national issue. In a state that has contiguous borders with 7 others makes it very difficult to have, I think, a meaningful gun control approach. But we do need to focus on making our schools more safe, and I think we ought to have a dialogue. And I am a hunter, I am a sportsman, and the hunters and sportsmen that I hang with are people who are all willing to talk about these sorts of issues. I don't think we should...
So you're not against the possibility of...
No, I'm not against any conversation. We can't have kids being shot in schools. And we need to protect our heritage in Kentucky, and I'm a gun owner. I have a bunch of guns. But let's not be afraid of the conversation.
What about the legalization of recreational marijuana?
So I'm there on medical marijuana, and I think we all know that eventually is likely to eventually lead to recreational marijuana. What I don't want to see is to go too fast into this and us end up like Colorado, where they've got pot dispensaries on Main Street. I'm not for that, and that's not a conversation I'm really ready to have with my kids. What I want to do is make sure that those who are critically or chronically ill have access to every comfort possible, including marijuana. And our friend Rex Chapman is the person who really turned me around on this. Rex said, Adam, you cannot meaningfully fix the opioid crisis unless you have community-based treatment, that is beds where addicts live, which we don't, and you got to introduce medical marijuana. And he's turned my heart on the issue, and now I'm a great champion of it.
You've taken some criticism from one of our co-hosts on this show, Ricky Jones, who brought up a tweet you wrote in 2016 about Colin Kaepernick, in which you said that his protest, I think you called him a jackass at the time. Do you regret that tweet? And how do you feel about the Kaepernick protest now?
Well, yeah, I regret it. It was a dumb thing to say. And I think, Matt, you know me well enough to know that I'm not a name caller. And I was sitting on the couch watching football, and this was before he even kneeled. This is when he was sitting. And I saw this through my prism and reacted too quickly without considering other options, and called him a name, and I shouldn't have, and I regret it. And I apologize for doing that.
Are you against those protests?
Oh, certainly not. In my record, the tweet was unfortunate, and it didn't speak to who I am. Who I am is a guy who was chairman of the board of the Lexington Urban League. Who I am is the guy who was the first statewide elected politician in Kentucky to endorse marriage equality. Who I am is the guy who wrote a scathing report on the equity gap in our school systems when I ran New Century Lexington here in this community, and that was 15 or 20 years ago. I am proud of my record. I am racially progressive. I have a lot of support from a lot of diverse elements of the community, and I really regret that an unfortunate knee-jerk reaction could jeopardize that reputation.
Let me go to a couple other things. Your opponents in the primary so far, Rocky Adkins and Andy Beshear, and all of you worked at one time in the same administration or at various points. What makes you different than them? Somebody sitting there watching going, I kind of like Andy Beshear, I kind of like Rocky Adkins, I kind of like Adam Edelen. Why elect you over them?
The truth is we're all pretty good guys. The difference between Andy and Rocky and me is that we all have very different skill sets. And to build a modern Kentucky, it's going to require somebody who has executive experience and who knows what the modern economy looks like. I mean, my work in putting up developing a solar project in eastern Kentucky that involved a coal company that's going to put back to work a lot of out-of-work coal miners, more than $100 million capital investment. To do that without a dime of state money, I think speaks to a skill set that I have to help prepare Kentucky for the opportunities and challenges that are going to come. Rocky and Andy are great guys, but to get Kentucky to be where we need to be and to face the challenges that we're going to have to face in the next 4 or 5 years, Matt, you got to have somebody who knows what a new economy looks like. And I do.
Let me ask you a specific question. In your comments on when you announced, you sort of made a reference to intergenerational legacies, and that obviously read to me like a shot against Andy. Do you think that he is only in this race because of who his father is?
No, I think it was a shot at the dynastic politics, Matt. The very same reason why you and I founded the New Kentucky Project was because we were utterly convinced that the same old people saying the same old stuff is going to get us the same old result. And what we've got to do in Kentucky is inspire a new generation of leaders around ideas that look and feel like the future and have people who are from different walks of life running for office. I worked for Andy Beshear's dad. I was his chief of staff. He was a good man, and he was a governor who had the skill set we needed at that time. But I'm also real proud of my dad, who's a farmer in Meade County, Kentucky, who raised his kid, brought him home from the hospital to a trailer, and in one generation gets to live in a place where his kid gets to be a credible candidate for governor. Man, that's what makes Kentucky great. And I don't have a problem with the advantages Andy's had, but there are clear points of differentiation. And I frankly know what it's like to deal with the challenges that people who are in the working class and want to stay in the middle class experience, because I've lived them.
Last question. A lot of people out there who don't like Matt Bevin want somebody who can beat Matt Bevin.
Yeah.
I've heard some Democrats say, well, Adam lost in his last election for auditor. Andy won. Rocky still won. Do you worry at all about that? And can you convince people that you can win after having lost your last election?
Listen, I think I'm the Democrat Matt Bevin doesn't want to run against. I am the candidate who is going to have the best body of work. I think I'm the one who has the broadest amount of appeal. And did I lose? Sure, Matt. And I got to be honest with you. In my life, I've lost more than I've won. I mean, I know what it's like to sweat the rent. I know what it's like to bounce a check. I'm far from those moments now, but they haunt me. And if the born on third base crowd wants to make the point that high office only belongs to people who have won every step of the way, I look forward to having that argument. I know what it's like to take a punch, and I know what it's like to give one.
Adam Edelen, thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Matt.